All right. Welcome to the regular meeting of Helotes City Council. It's March 9th, 2023, 7 p.m. At this point, I'd like to call Mr. William Gray to come up and give the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
Let us pray. Mighty God, thank you that you hear and answer our prayers. Hear our prayers and be in the midst of our meeting today. Thank you that your presence calms the troubled seas of life and speaks peace to our souls. Give us clear minds and peaceful hearts as we gather tonight. In his name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. All right. Thank everybody for coming. At this point, we are going to open a public hearing. Public hearing is an opportunity for you to sign up and speak anything that's on your mind. You have 3 minutes. Unfortunately, we do have to keep that to a timer to be fair, and you can speak about anything. We, however, cannot comment, but we take it into consideration and for future discussions. At this time, I'd like to call Mr. Miguel Hernandez. If you can please come up, state your name and address. Huh?
Mayor Whitehead, we're on item number 2 first.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. We'll put a pause on that. We'll skip right over our public hearing. Thank you very much. At this point, we're going to open up our public hearing at 7:02 p.m. I got a little excited for citizens to be heard there. Sorry. It is probably one of the most important things, but at this point, we're opening our public hearing to give all interested parties the right to appear and be heard on the property, the proposed voluntary annexation by Michael and Catherine Arena for property located on FM 1560 near its intersection with Braun Road, described as 4.719 acres out of the J.P. Miller Survey, Abstract 861, and out of the MMV Musqueam Survey, Abstract 467, Bear County. It is property tax ID number 236993. Is there anybody to speak on this topic?
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, at this point, we will close said public hearing at 7:03. Now, for the much anticipated Mr. Miguel Hernandez, please come up. State your name and address for the record, please, and you have 3 minutes to share whatever's on your mind, sir.
The exact address?
Yes, please.
Okay. My name is Miguel Hernandez. My address is 13511 Windmill Trace. It's the Wingate Run subdivision. So I am a citizen of Helotes, Texas. All right. I'd like to speak on agenda item number 8 regarding animals for domestic benefit and or 4-H and FFA. So I would strongly urge the council to make the decision to amend the restrictions. I believe it's a minimum 1 acre to keep any farm animals such as chickens and whatnot. And fowl would be the one that I'm expressly interested in. A couple of European towns about 10 years ago did some studies and determined that 2 to 3 chickens would save about half a ton of waste going to the landfills of the biologic waste. And so I believe that if this is connected to 4-H and FFA, and we're trying to instill certain values into our children, this could help shift the culture onto more ecological solutions that we would all benefit from when it comes to health. I mean, 4-H, it's head, heart, hands, and health. What better than to have more locally organic produced food? That's health. Hands, what are children doing with their hands these days? It's screens and phones. Their hearts are a bit more distant from some of these basics. So I think this would be a very ideal starter solution that could open the arena to further solutions. So I would strongly urge that significant restrictions be made, especially in my subdivision where there's such, I would say, a chokehold where we can't even park on the street in front of our own house. So maybe it's a pipe dream for me, and I hope that we could have some changes before my children get any older. So,
thank you. Thank you very much. And now for Miss Laura Jones.
My name is Laura Jones. I live at 13235 Spring Run in Iron Horse Canyon. I'm not going to be quite as eloquent, but I am also speaking on the same issue. I grew up in Dallas, far north Dallas. Plano was at the time farm country. I don't know if you're familiar with that area at all. It was farm country. I think they might have had 4-H, FFA up there, but of course, we were not allowed to use those facilities. So I never had the opportunity, never knew what 4-H meant, what it was, what it could do for not just myself, but kids in general. Fast forward 5 years ago, had a daughter in the 4-H, wanted to raise rabbits. At the time, I had no idea that I should check, because rabbits are such a small project and a short-term project. We did raise rabbits in our backyard. And it wasn't until several years later that I realized, oh, we weren't supposed to do that because of the, we don't own an acre. It's like half an acre. However, through 4-H, my kids have learned leadership, where food comes from. Even the cute little fuzzy rabbits that that my daughter raised, they were, responsible. She was solely responsible for taking care of them, feeding them, cleaning up after them, etc. So it really does teach children to function in society where they understand where food comes from, how hard it is to produce food, because at the end of that project, those rabbits then went off to be processed and fed people. So, and to piggyback on the previous comments, that it would greatly benefit to have children especially involved in the raising of small animals. So
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. As far as other citizens be heard, I believe we had one submission that was submitted to electronically, a letter?
No.
No? Okay.
But we had two emails.
The email that you sent,
Those-
Yeah, but we don't, not for, they have to physically be here.
be here to read
For us
it.
to read them, yes.
Understood. That closes our open session. At this point, we're looking for a motion, unless anybody wants to pull items number 4 or 5 for discussion. I'm looking for a motion to approve consent agenda items number 4 and 5 as written.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve consent agenda items number 4 and 5.
Motion by Sanders, second by
Second.
Stones. With no discussion needed on these items, all in favor of approving items number 4 and 5 on the consent agenda as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. At this point, we have the mayor's report. Give a couple of updates. Recently, we had a ordinance that was approved, no through traffic in Beverly Hills subdivision, particularly with section 86.9. It applies to the through traffic. This was advertised in the newspaper last Wednesday and this past Wednesday to fulfill the requirements for 2 public notifications. And it is now being actively enforced.
Are the signs up already?
The signs have been put up. They were put up about within 4 or 5 days from when it was approved. So people had noticed it. There's obviously been comments online. There's been a lot of online conversation, of course, public notification. It is currently being enforced now, and so just wanted to make another public declaration. Please realize that the community is not a through thoroughfare. It is for that community, is not intended. The issues at hand behind that were safety related for the people in the Beverly Hills community, as well as financially related due to the deterioration of the road. And that was the intent from the previous approval of the ordinance. But just to make public notification again, that ordinance is being enforced currently. Next, we have the Pet Wellness and Vaccination Clinic. It will be hosted by the Helotes Animal Control in partnership with the Mobile Pet Care Clinic of Texas. This is going to happen here at City Hall on March 19th. Do we have a time for that? I believe that's
1 to 4.
1 to 4, 1 to 4 on that Sunday. And finally, we have the 56th annual Cornival. We're announcing that. It will be Love, Peace, and Corn, a throwback to the 60s and 70s. Have fun with it with your costumes, and if you want to put your float from your business, your organization, or heck, if you got a family, you just want to throw on a float and have a good time, it's free to enter, but space is limited. We have 100 spots. I anticipate we'll be sold out, being that it's free, but first come, first serve. You can register for that online at the city website. The easiest way, just click on helotes-tx.gov and just do a quick search for Cornival. You can't miss it. At this time, we're going to have the first reading and discussion, which is item number 7, on an ordinance for the City of Council on the City of Helotes, Texas, providing for the extension of Helotes municipal boundaries by voluntary annexation. Do you want to say anything about that, Selena?
If there's any questions.
You all have the documents. This is the annexation of the property for
Michael and Catherine Arena.
on the said aforementioned public hearing we had for the annexation of the 4.719 acre tract. Now, this will be the annexation of it, but still, there's an agreement will come separately, so that will be for discussion at a later date.
That's what I was going to bring up, so.
Yes.
Well, okay, we're good.
For those that are wondering, in our ETJ, we have a extraterritorial jurisdiction. So you have the city boundary, and then there's an area around it in certain areas that are not part of Helotes, but they can be voluntarily seek annexation by the city, and therefore they would be subject to city taxes, but they would also get city services. And this is a property that is submitting for voluntary annexation to the city of Helotes. Any questions at all from council?
Letters have gone out to the neighbors around them,
Yes.
and have you heard any responses?
No responses.
And when did the letters go out?
I'd have to check and get back to you.
Okay.
But a notification was published in the newspaper. All of the entities or utilities that provide service to that parcel were notified also via mail, and then also the surrounding 200 feet.
Okay.
And I've received no comments as of today.
Okay.
Any other questions? And then, of course, this will come back for a second reading and final action on March 23rd.
Okay. Well, with no further discussion and there's no action on this item, we'll move to item number 8. Looking for a motion and a second for discussion and action on item number 8 as written.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we discuss and take action on item number 8 as written, or direction, discussion and direction.
Yes.
Motion by Massey, second by
Second.
Sounds okay. Before we get into this, we're just going to take a point of privilege just to properly shape the intention of what this agenda item is. Currently, there are restrictions on having animals on your property if you have less than 1 acre. This has been affectionately referred to as Chicken Gate because it turns out that one of my neighbors had chickens in their backyard. I was aware of that, but I will quite openly confess I was unaware that we had an ordinance, and on top of that, we had a homeowners association ordinance against it. Just happened to be there. I've been aware of people for years raising 4-H chickens in their garage under heat lamps and a little feed trough. Raising them, it's not that long of a project, 6 to 8 weeks, I guess, somewhere thereabouts, and rabbits as well as, as far as small animals underneath their deck in a cage. Quite different than larger animals, say goats and steer and pigs, which were housed at the barns at O'Connor High School. Social media being what it is, people were asking, got in a conversation, and then somebody called me out, well, if you're a friend of the mayor, apparently you don't have to obey by the rules. I'm like, what? Yes, you do. I didn't realize there was a rule. I called to verify the rules with our city code compliance. I also called the HOA, and sure enough, there's rules against by both. So I called up the people and said, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to get rid of your animals. I understand we're friends, but you're gonna have to abide by the law. Now that I'm aware, we have to enforce. They were kind enough, and we're making arrangements for those chickens to be relocated. That being said, it brought up a lot of conversation in the community. We are a 4-H community. There are literally hundreds of our children at O'Connor High School. That's just one aspect. That's under FFA. Then there's 4-H, which handles a lot of our middle school and elementary kids. And again, hundreds. We have hundreds upon hundreds of large animal stalls at the barns at O'Connor, and typically that's where people raise their steer or their pigs or goats, unless they have large acre plus land where they can have other animals, etc. But typically, when you look in practice, there's been really at the house in somebody's garage under heat lamps has been common practice from what I'm finding out and what I understood. What we're trying to do here today, in my opinion, is to make some modifications to our ordinance to be able to allow generically in the city of Helotes, regardless of your size of your house, to be able to have 4-H or FFA project chickens in your garage. It's contained. We're talking baby chicks under heat lamp, and if they grow to the point, I believe they're just kept in that container the whole time, but they might be into a completely encapsulated cage under your deck if they grow to a larger spot. But again, this is only like a 6 to 8 week project. Or up to 2 pins of rabbits. There's usually 3 to 4 rabbits in a pin. A pin is about that big. Might be suspended under your deck in your backyard, but again, no free running animals and no long-term permanent. We're not talking about permanent, we're just talking about school project small animals. So we're not talking about goats or pigs or cattle, and we're not talking about long-term only chickens and rabbits and only for school project duration, or what I'm terming school project for conversation, meaning 4-H or FFA projects. Now, if we do make this adjustment, that does not mean anybody can just all of a sudden have animals at their house. They are still subject to their community's homeowners association. So even if we say, yes, you can have chickens in your garage, or you can have rabbits, you still can't if your HOA has CCRs speaking against it. That is a whole separate issue. So if anybody's concerned about having this, this does not give everybody the green light. You still have to have an HOA say that you can have it at your house. And if there's any concern about that, that is exactly how this is written to be able to be upheld. This just simply allows, if your homeowners association does want to have participation in 4-H projects, it gives them the ability to be able to adopt and allow something that it would be legal in the city of Helotes. All we're doing is providing the framework. Of course, I have no vote in this. This is all I'm bringing up here for consideration. This is open for discussion and direction, so we know how exactly to write an ordinance to be able to come back for a vote. So with that, I will open it up with Councilmember Massey for your comments.
Yes, this is an issue that's been vetted a long time ago. In 1994 is when the council passed our first animal control ordinance regarding this. And they thought that that was the end of it, but of course it never was. And actually that ordinance wasn't passed until after 7 years of people, especially 4-H and FHAs wanting to be able to basically have whatever they wanted in whatever size lot. 7 years, they finally settled on the 1 acre for the animals, and then they put the numbers and that kind of thing. Then they decided that remember when the pot-bellied pigs became in vogue? They wanted to but they are swine, but they wanted to bring those in. And they actually brought a pot-bellied pig to City Hall during one of our city council meetings. I wasn't here at the time, but anyway, just to show how cute they were. Well, we all know that they get big too anyway. Anyway, they voted against the swine in city limits, no matter what. But again, the FFA parents and the Helotes 4-H members, and obviously, Rich is right, this has been a long history of farming, the ranching community, and probably no one knows it better than I do. I mean, this is why people moved out here. There was originally cattle, a lot of milk cows out here, a lot of milk cow ranches out here, and farming. So this is, but remember, this was a rural area for a long time. It's not so rural anymore. We also have a lot of smaller subdivisions with quarter acres, small lots. So that's why it became very difficult to decide what to do. But I just wanted to throw in a few things. And now we're talking about small animals, right?
Yeah,
We're just talking about rabbits and chickens. And then you have to decide. I guess my biggest thing is the acreage. I just can't see allowing it in one of the regular subdivisions that only has less than a quarter acre. I mean, and we can discuss that, obviously. I guess I'm mostly concerned of the smell and taking care of it. And if it's just a 4-H project, I don't seem to have a problem. But I just want you, do you know that we had, when this was going on, it took the 7 years to get this ordinance the way it was, the way we have it now. Supporters came in and they even had all kinds of, they wanted to be able to finish their 4-H projects because they were already doing them, and they allowed them to do that. But then you have to also think about the people who live there and who don't have 4-H kids, who are maybe retired and they don't have any kids at all, and they want to sit out in their backyard and not to have to smell things. Now, and this was going on before. Somebody said, I'm for 4-H and FFA, but why in the city limits? The people behind us are raising hogs. I can't enjoy anything on the back porch. It just stinks too bad. There's actually a subdivision out here that they have a steer and a horse on just a little less than 1 acre. And I've sat in the backyard of that. My friends live behind them, and the smell in the summer is foul. It's horrible. Supposedly they've taken care of it. I guess there's some mechanism to take care of that, which is, I guess, I don't know, where do you muck it when you only have less than 1 acre? I don't know. But that's the thing. We have to think not just of one set of people's rights or kids, and it's a good thing for them to raise that, but then we also have to think of the people, the neighbors, the people who bought this property. Perhaps they did know about the ordinance and they go, oh, good, I'm going to live on an acre, or I'm going to live on less than an acre, and I'm not going to have to worry about somebody having a rabbit, a pig, or whatever, a chicken making noise. So what about those people? So the thing is, we have to kind of weigh that. I talked to, and apparently it's mostly correct me if I'm wrong, it's the 4-H families who are more concerned about this because they don't have the facilities that the FFA has. And because I did call the ag program over there at O'Connor, there are 475 students in ag at O'Connor, and they have about 3,000 students, so that's a significant amount of students in ag. They have 4 livestock barns, 1 greenhouse, 2 chicken pens, 2 mechanic shops for ag engineering. They have 200 swine pens, 90 goat pens, 50 lamb pens, 30 poultry pens, and 8 steer pens, and not all are used. So the majority are full from July to January. My point was, I just wanted to find out, is there something, are there kids who want to be in ag who can't because they live on small acreage? Well, not at O'Connor. If you want to, work and have that, you can have a place there. I know some parents don't want to have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to take their kid to go feed their animals, and so it's more convenient to have them at home. But if there's some way that we can keep the 1 acre for everything else but I just don't know about making it like in a subdivision like Cedar Springs or Iron Horse Canyon with the smaller lots. We'd have to tailor it just for those. And I don't have a problem with that. I just would like to, can we do that?
And there are mechanisms for that, such as certain cities that I gave y'all ordinances that copy where you have to turn in. Right now, we don't follow anyone that has a project. You have an acre or so forth, as long as, you're following the code, which there's no mechanism for us to even check that unless someone gets reported. There are cities that for you to have an animal on your property that's part of the 4-H that follows those set of rules, you have to turn in the project to the city. So the city's aware of it, then the city goes and our code compliance officer or our animal control would go and inspect to ensure that they have it during this period to that period, and that they have the coops or the pens the way it needs to be. So there are mechanisms that other cities use that allows us to do, if we decided to go that direction for the 4-H and FAA, for the smaller, the fowl and for the chicken and the rabbits, there are things that we can put in our.
So the intent here is not to allow any of the horses or goats or swine or large animals, but in a small 1/4 acre lot, say in Iron Horse Canyon where I've been, and again, prior to when I was mayor and didn't realize there was any any ordinance against it, I have been by houses that had their chickens. When you're talking with chickens in an area about the size of here, in a garage under a heat lamp, this is not a noise or smell issue, and rabbits are not when you're talking with 6 rabbits in a cage the size of our desk here, or this area in front of my desk, it's not a smell issue or a noise issue, and we're only talking a 6 to 8 week period. So we're talking with Marion, and this would be a simple process where the 4-H people, when and we've been a part of that organization for years, they have a meeting, everybody's gonna get their animals, they come and they talk the cages, and they hand out paperwork, and there could be an additional sheet of paper where they notify for the city, we're doing a 4-H, here's our address, and we have a 4-H chicken or 4-H rabbit. We're only talking about chickens and rabbits for a short duration, not for long-term durations, and nothing of large animal that would cause disturbance smell-wise to neighbors.
Well, one thing I wanted to mention is I live on 2 acres and right next, and so we have acreage around our house. And we actually have deed restrictions that you're not supposed to have any animals, any livestock or any fowl, but everyone in our neighborhood has all kinds of stuff. And it can't be enforced. The city can't enforce our deed restrictions because we don't have a homeowners association. But what can be enforced is the regulations that the ordinance, okay? Anyway, I have a bunch of chickens who live next door. I have turkeys and ducks and a rooster. Well, I just found out that roosters are not allowed at all in the city. And it's because they make so much noise. And I wouldn't mind this rooster, but he never wakes up at the right time. He wakes me up always at the wrong time. But he's right, one thing, and I have big acreage, and their coop is pretty far away. And I've never smelled anything. They keep it very clean. And I don't know if they have 4-H kids or not, or FH, but everything is clean. It doesn't bother me. Their turkey got away and jumped into our yard, and turkeys are vicious. You have to be careful with turkeys. So we ended up getting the turkey out. But the point is, I have kind of an affinity for these animals. And I have a big acreage, and I'm just trying to figure out how the other people in the smaller houses are going to feel.
And again, this is only to give a framework. The homeowners associations, for example, say Cedar Springs or Iron Horse Canyon, will have to decide for themselves whether or not to allow it. This only simply gives us an acknowledgement from the city if we do go ahead and say, hey, listen, we recognize we are a 4-H and an FFA community, and so therefore, we're not going to kill it at day one. We're going to open it up. Now, your community, if they got small houses and they decide for themselves, we're still not going to allow it, okay, fine, it doesn't allow it. But you have on Paragon Road, and they say, you know what, we're going to allow it, they can allow it, or, you know, but it still is going to be subject to the homeowners association, because this homeowners association has the right, upheld by state law, to be more restrictive than the city. They just, it would be a different thing if we're saying everybody has to allow, and that's not what we're saying. We're saying that it is permissible, if not restricted by deed restriction or restricted by homeowners association. And all we're doing here by passing this is giving the right to the communities to be able to allow said small project, but still restrict it from large animals. Large, as you pointed out, large animals, people want to have a large animal. There's room at the barns, or if you have ranch land at an uncle or wherever you want to raise your steer, but this would still restrict large animals from less than an acre. Let's continue with Sones.
I just have a few questions. A lot of my questions weren't answered, but on the agenda item that we received under caption, the wording that's used talks about 4-H and FFA, but it also talks about domestic benefit, and then at the end of that description, it talks about beekeeping. So I guess when I spread the word in the city about this, I think I got confusion back because the scope was not limited to FFA and 4-H. So I'm a little,
Because
and
the
we're not
ordinance,
deciding anything today. This is just discussion.
This is direction, and so we started the conversation with here. To that, we also have a discussion, do we want to make allowances for beekeeping? There are increased interests in beekeeping. I don't personally get it, but I understand the concept of the habit. I know Craig has got an interest in that, and so that's a topic that we can discuss and decide if we want to allow that or not. We're really kind of opening up this ordinance to say, do we need to update this and make it a little bit more specific for what our city has become? Say, we realize we can't have large animals, but here, a small animal project that really doesn't make noise or smell. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and allow that. Do we want to allow bees? We're open up for conversation, and really we're just looking for direction. And if we can say yes to the chicks and the rabbits, no to bees, or yes to bees, no to this, or yes to it all, or no to it all, we can give some direction for us to come back with an actual written.
oh my goodness. So the also, yeah, because the chapter talks about all of it. It talks about people that are in the FFA and 4-H, and some people that don't. So people have chickens or stuff, if they have an acre or more. We've also had people ask us, can I have a chicken? Because now eggs have gotten so expensive. So I want to have a chicken. Well, if it's less than an acre, you cannot. You know, but we've had that question. So basically that's why we put the caption there, because this is just for y'all to give staff direction on what you want to change in this ordinance. You want to change something? You want to change nothing? You want to add something? That is up to y'all. And that's why I gave examples also of other cities. And I gave extreme examples from from cities that allowed everything and all of it, cities that were more restricted than us, and cities that were in between. And so that you can look at it and make a decision on what if you want to do a direction, or if you want to just leave it as is.
Well, and I just immediately, two of the comments I got from two families is, you know, this was and again, I understand this is our process. This is just stating facts. This is not a complaint, but this agenda posted Monday night. So that's 3 days before the meeting. And then there's a mandatory meeting for incoming AG students at O'Connor tonight. So I guess I would like just this to be an ongoing conversation, especially after hearing Councilmember Massey give this history. I was a little overwhelmed by it this week. That's part of the job. Again, not a complaint, just being candid here, that there's just a lot of second and third order effects, unintended, good intentions for public policy for our city,
And then we've got the flip side of several people contacting us as council members saying, I don't want to, smell barn animals in the backyard. So I think we can come to a good, thoughtful solution. I just think it's going to take a lot more time.
And it can, we did that with the food truck. That's why, and that's why staff has, this has changed in just the last couple of years, that we now bring it to y'all as a discussion and direction. And then it can come back again as another, from that, okay, we haven't finished all the discussion, so we want another one, and we want more public input. We did that with the food truck where we, y'all were able to go out and get and ask people to come to the next council meeting, because we're gonna have it back on the agenda as a discussion and direction. Or as there's been other ones where I was given, staff was given direction immediately to start working on an ordinance. And then we put an ordinance together, we have a first reading and we have a second reading, because then we still have input once that's there. So you're not looking just all of a sudden at an ordinance. And that's why, it's council's job to set policy, and it's staff's job to implement it. And staff's job to bring, when we have concerns or we get phone calls or we have residents that have asked us. So these are the things that have come up about changing that, so we bring it to y'all to make the decision if you want to change it or not.
Well, and I appreciate that. I mean, when I first read it, I thought we were making a decision on an ordinance. I'm still new at this job, so I was very pleased as I dived into it that this is just a discussion, but I also think we need more time for our residents. I mean, I appreciate the people who responded so quickly, 3 days, and there's people here emailing us, citizens to be heard. That is fantastic. Thank you. But there's just a lot of intersecting issues, and this needs to be well thought out, especially with the compliance portion of how is this going to be followed? Is it going to be followed?
Yeah, and usually we do try to post on Fridays. The reason we did on Mondays, we were waiting on a verification on one of the items.
Yes, and again, I not a complaint, just an observation that it happened very quickly. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Let's start at that. Greg?
So, great discussion. I appreciate Councilmember Massey's description of how hard and difficult it was to get this type of ordinance to where it is right now. It's 6-7 years. I'm of the mindset, after talking to people in Helotes, I'm receptive to making changes on the edges, small incremental change. I think the 4-H thing is low impact to neighbors, right? The mayor said it, hit the nail on the head when he said it's really the neighborhoods that have homeowners associations. There's a level of effort in order to change a CCR, a rule within an HOA community. I know in the community I live in, 66% of the property owners have to vote. They don't have to all vote in favor of it, but you have to have that to come out and vote. So that's a whole nother issue. I'm definitely receptive to the 4-H, small, tiny animals, in friendly but restrictive spaces in a garage or someplace where it's not a problem to any of the neighbors. I got to tell you, where I live, I just struggle with the dogs barking all the time too, at the most inopportune time, right? Whether I'm on the phone or I'm not feeling well and I want to take a nap or something. I'm getting older, so I need a lot of naps. So I'm definitely in favor of that. One thing is rolling in my mind right now, I don't know which stand I would take if it were to come up as part of a change to the ordinance, is reducing the 1 acre to a ½ acre for chickens and rabbits. I think they're probably very, for general consumption, for people that have property that aren't on a 4-H project. I'm not saying that's specifically what I'm in favor of, but it's something that I'm thinking about, and I'm not prepared to say, yes, let's do that. But I think there's an interest there. I live on and it's not because I live on a 1/4 acre lot, that's a little more than a 1/4 acre. I got a pretty big lot. And I could easily, and I thought about it, where would I put 4 chickens or where, and I could do it without impacting any of my neighbors. I think once you get below that, it becomes a problem. So I don't know what's the right change. Is it a half acre, a quarter acre for, again, small little animals, not swine, not horses, not something you would see on a farm. So anyways, those are my final comments. I hopefully provide you sort of an idea where I'm coming from.
And I'm just taking a point of privilege as we come through and bring up particular issues. I don't know as if we really need to make a change on an acre to a half acre to allow people to have chickens in general for long-term use. Because currently there's a bill going through the state that I read it and I can't remember if they said 3 or 6. But the bill is going to say if it passes, it will state and mandate that no organization, city, HOA, or any governmental will be able to prevent anybody from having either 3 or 6 hens, not roosters, but hens, for the purpose of laying eggs, et cetera. And it goes along with a study that was done overseas. I just saw a whole community gave every other house 3 eggs, 3 chickens. It totally limits the need for the poultry industry and reduced like 100-some tons a month in garbage. So that's something that's happening on the state. And if the state does that, doesn't matter what we say. And so to change our ordinance to allow chickens now, I think would be premature. Let's see what the state does. It would be my suggestion, see what the state does on long-term hen ownership. But if we're looking at 4-H projects, which is like for the month of December, you've got just right up to the Gerlach, which is right in the early weeks of January. You're only talking 4, 5, 6 weeks of non-disruptive, non-disturbing small animals, either inside the garage or in a pen underneath your deck. Like you said, think rabbits that don't make any noise, not steer or horses or anything like that. So with that, unless you have anything, did you have any comments on bees?
So that's a personal thing for me. But I would just tell you, I work around a lot of people that are actually highly allergic to stings, and they're carrying EpiPens with them all the time. And it seems like that number's growing. People are really allergic. So I think there's a lot of liability. I think there's a lot of risk involved in that. Whereas rabbits and chickens, I think there's little to no liability for property owners and so on and so forth. So even though it's something I would like to do, I just need to buy some property over a great forest or something and have my own little beehives. But yeah, that's not something I'm passionate that I think it's good for the community.
Okay.
So I do have a few things here. I appreciate the discussion so far because I came in here, with a certain perspective coming from Cedar Springs on the board over there years ago. My kids, had chickens when we lived over in San Antonio. So, I came in here thinking, they were in a small lot like I have, which is less than a quarter of an acre. Free range, they're running around, there's dogs across the other fence, but as you framed it earlier, that this is simply for the 4-H and FFA, and I would absolutely support that with the restrictions or the allowances. I would say I'd frame it that because we already have the ordinance which is restrictive, and these are the allowances we're granting because there is a balance in our community. We have subdivisions like mine, Iron Horse Canyon, which I don't think it's appropriate to have those free range, right? And this would, like one of the residents said, this is one of those opportunities to see, how does this work? Could it morph into something else? We did this, I think, very successfully with the food truck ordinance last year, and things can come back to us. So with it framed as in your garage, under the lights, with some kind of check at least from the city to ensure that there's some compliance and oversight to ensure that people that still have issues about this, I would certainly support it. In terms of guidance, specifically for the what staff might bring back to us, I would consider how we would deal with the multifamily residences that are coming in. And if those garages abut each other, I can't recall, what the plans are, but I don't think that would necessarily be conducive to allowing chickens to grow up in those types of
So at that point, you put, like you were talking about,
Multifamily.
if it's, just, you have to have at least this much, a quarter of an acre or half an acre.
Or you
something
could
like
say
that.
at least a single-family house, not a multifamily.
Okay.
So, for example, we do have that one older apartment complex. We wouldn't be able to have them there because it's an apartment, multifamily. So if you have single-family, and I'd hate to get down into a description of, let's see, quarter acres, 5,000 square feet, 10,000 square feet. So we got 9,980 square feet versus 10,020 square feet. I hate to get in that argument of, 4 decimal points on a quarter acre. But if we're saying single family home, 10 square feet doesn't make a difference on an acre, but it might make a difference on, 3 lots on a block. And, that's kind of
Yeah,
Kinda
I just think
nitpicking on that,
enforcement
but,
would be an issue.
generically speaking, that, yeah, so if you have single family, okay, but not at multifamily institutions, whether it's, group townhomes or apartments, it is very common, I think we looked in the one city, they don't allow it in any multifamily.
Okay.
So there's very easy enough to depict and describe that.
And then in terms of the rental, or I know in Cedar Springs, our CCRs address short-term rentals such as like Airbnb. Is our ordinance 6 months, or do we even have something that addresses like that? Okay, so,
We brought this up and then we didn't move forward with short-term rental ordinance.
okay, because I think, I don't know that I would necessarily be comfortable with renters who don't own the property having livestock, the chickens and rabbits in the garage.
Again, that's something that could be handled by lease agreement and, homeowners association, et cetera, on restrictions, but, that'd be beyond the purview of the city ordinance, can't discriminate between
You can't discriminate.
landowner or
with
renter.
Yeah.
But the person that's renting the property in their lease agreement, they could say, hey, we're not going to lease with this use, and that's a private business decision. And again, it would still have to be allowed by the HOA. If the HOA allows short-term rentals and if the city, if it's in compliance with long-term, which again was still an issue that we're having to deal with. But I think at that point, you created a matrix that's so deep and thick, so.
Certainly the multifamily,
Yeah.
I think that would be an issue for enforcement.
I think that's a reasonable restriction to.
And then, in terms of, this, I don't know that I would necessarily change my opinion right now in terms of the beekeeping when I saw the caption as well. Again, we have, our city's makeup, we have some residents who have acreage, and then we have others like me who have a big house and no yard. And then, Craig brings up the point about the risk to the neighbors, and I concur with that. But I don't think in this one, because it's not something any of us, I think, have brought up or can claim to be experts on, but there are Texas Master Beekeeper certifications. I would be comfortable if somebody with a background in this gave us a presentation, we could do a Q&A to say what's the pros and cons of allowing this to go forward with the considerations all from the spectrum of, Craig works with service members who have to carry EpiPens around, and me, reasonably, I think we could probably throw a small, I don't know that I allow my kids to do it, but if they press me really hard, we could probably fit a bee hive in the backyard a little bit. So I would think that if you're receiving requests from residents, that it's something I would be open to discussing only if we had somebody with expertise to say, here we looked at Helotes, and this is what our recommendations are with the pros and cons. And those are all my comments.
I would just be curious as to how many chickens we're gonna allow. Don't FFA give out I think my daughter did this a couple of years ago, they gave her 25 chickens. That seems like an awful lot to have in a box.
Third, it's.
I mean, I saw what she did with it.
If I may, do we have somebody here that raised chickens?
I saw what she did
Okay,
with it.
how many?
We got 25 each project.
Each project, and I believe I've seen them, they're like water troughs, right? Maybe 6 feet long, and
Yeah, we have
the chicks are this big,
Yeah, but they get,
and they do get bigger, but do they stay in that, or they do?
it's, with the school project, you're required to keep them at home for the first 2 weeks, and then you can transfer them to the pens at the school. The reason they ask you to keep them at home is because they don't have a way to maintain proper temperature at the pens at the school. So they have to be at 90 degrees for the first 3 or 4 days, and then you start dropping the temps after that.
I remember.
And then once they're feathered in, then you can transfer them to the school.
So
Like
again,
5 chickens we're talking about, this is like 25.
yeah, but they're 25
They're
chicks,
like
and then by the time they get big, 2 weeks.
That's for the FFH, but for the 4-H, what is like, it's a different, it would be a whole different,
It's
6 weeks.
It's about 6 weeks. Like
6 weeks,
for
okay.
Bear County, we got like the week before Thanksgiving, and the Bear County show was the week after Christmas.
okay, so then there's a show.
It's really just the month of December, and most of that's in the garage, correct? Or all of it's in the garage, mostly, because of the heat lamps and keeping the temperature.
For the
So,
first 2 weeks, and then
If you
they
have
get
a
transferred
garage.
to the-
and then
to the
transfer
school.
back to the school. So, again, this is a very, and again, we'll continue the conversation on that. We don't need to debate every aspect of this, but we'll give opportunity for council members to have conversations with the community. But we'll continue this conversation, but it's, I think what I hear everybody saying is that maybe not the bees, let's start with something small. You know, I like what Craig, you framed it. Let's make minor adjustments, not just major overhauls, but what we're looking at is chicken and rabbits only, not large animals. Maybe we'll just leave the bees for another time, or another size of property or whatever. I do know that there are some bees in the community, but they
Yeah.
are on larger acre
Yeah, I was just gonna
properties.
say, I mean, in our neighborhood, we have a beekeeper, and the honey is wonderful, by the way.
But once again, you're over
But
1 acre.
Yeah, it's definitely over, I think they have 3 or 4 acres, and I think we really need to consider that for bees, because, yeah, I mean, we could also say people can't, let's not have peanuts here, because people are allergic to peanuts. So, sorry if someone has a bee allergy. There's a lot of allergies running around that are not good, but,
So,
anyway.
so we'll take your comments into consideration. We'll formulate a framework for a ordinance. We'll bring it back for some more discussion, and then we'll put a final ordinance to bring back for a first reading.
So do you want the next agenda item to be another discussion and direction to get more input and then come back for?
I would like to we'll frame an ordinance, and
for
we'll
first
do it
reading,
as
okay.
a discussion item as we have framed it, and you can take a look at how it would look. We can have some discussion. If we need to make some plus and minuses on that, then we'll take it back and bring one for final approval. So that way, at least you'll have a template of what we hear you saying and incorporating into that, and then we can make adjustments from
What
there.
does, do we have the people to, like, follow up with this? How's the,
Well,
we'll have a
no, no.
mechanism to see who's involved? in
It
the
depends
program,
if we want to add that to that.
Because I don't want to have a
we're-
chicken Gestapo. You know what I mean?
We can add, I mean, it's up to council how they want to write the ordinance. They can have it as we have it now, where it's basically, people need to follow the code or so forth, or you can have it like some other cities where you're required to turn in a project to the city before you are allowed to have.
My suggestion is, because I've seen how the 4-H program works, it's very well run. They have fantastic people over there, and amongst all their paperwork and their training and their education and teaching out of proper care, here's a form to fill out identifying your address and that you're chicken or rabbit, and it submits to the city. And that way we have it on file in case a neighbor calls up and complains, hey, my neighbor's got chickens. We're like, well, yes, they do. And it's a 4-H project, and they'll be out there by the end of December. And it's allowable and it's registered. It doesn't require chicken Gestapo and inspections. We can just be on record and say, so if citizens call and complain, we can verify.
That's where
And they
it's
call and they say, hey, my neighbor's got a camel. Well, we got a problem with that. It's not registered. We got an issue, and it's under an acre. And we can properly handle it with just simply
That's
a simple piece of paper. I don't think anything else on there. So,
simple.
So I just want to make sure I understand when Councilmember Sanders talks about small changes, when you come back with an ordinance, our narrow approach is going to be addressing 4-H and FFA, not beekeeping, not, for general domestic use,
Correct.
Correct.
That's the direction that I've been
what I'm
given so
hearing.
far.
or domestic benefit.
Right, in other words, permanent, no permanent animals.
Okay.
And what we do is once we, at least do the first reading, we'll start contacting, once I know what direction we're going with this, if we decided to do this, like you said, a verification types, so forth, then we'll contact, both FFA at O'Connor as well as the 4-H to let them know, can you provide this? Can that be provided as part of some of the paperwork? And so, that verification, and we, as part of the project, or, a copy of their project, can be provided, either provided by who's doing the project, or they can provide a whole bundle and say, this is, all the projects.
Okay. Well, there's no action on this item, so with no further discussion, we'll go ahead and move on. At this point, we're going to adjourn and go to closed session. Closed session is in accordance with Texas Government Code, Section 551.087, deliberations regarding economic development negotiations. In addition to listed matters below, any matter scheduled for open session may be discussed in closed session as appropriate and authorized by law. We will be meeting on Section 551.087, deliberations regarding economic development negotiations with respect to an annexation and development agreement related to Brycewood Subdivision Unit 6A. No decisions will be made. This was only legal discussion protected by closed session. We will return. Feel free to stay and listen, but thank you, everybody, for coming and sharing your thoughts with us. We are turning to closed session at 7:56. Are we live?
We are.
Now we're live. All right. The faithful few. We appreciate it. Give my wife some company out there. All right. We are back in session. It is 8:11. No decisions were made in executive session. At this point, looking for a motion, a second, to discuss and take action on item number 10 as written. One, two, three, not it.
Mr. Mayor, I move
Zones, okay?
that we discuss and take action on item number 10 as written.
Motion by Stones, second by
I'll second it.
Massey. Opening comments?
I support accepting this petition.
I should probably have prefaced it. Do we have any comments from staff?
No.
No additional comments. No.
Oh,
Councilmember?
yes, I support this under, some terms that we hope to get through a development agreement and that kind of thing that will be brought back to us so that we could look at.
Right.
Okay.
This is solely the voluntary annexation,
Right.
not the petition for annexation, not the
Oh,
development
okay.
agreement.
It's
Right.
voluntary.
Right. First, you can't do a development agreement until the property's annexed into the property, similar as the one we had the public
Okay.
hearing on. So those are obviously two separate properties. So first you had the public hearing, now we got the voluntary action of which we're accepting that
Okay.
annexation. And then before they have the development, they have to have an approved development agreement, which
Okay.
will come later.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine.
All right. Comments, sir?
No, sir, I, good.
Matt? Greg? Nope. Okay. With no further discussion, all in favor of approving item number 10 as written, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. At this point, we shall adjourn for the evening. It is 8:13.